Well, hello and welcome to this episode of the Terri Show. So, how does it sound to you to get what you want? Are you one of those people who feels like it's easy to get what you want? Are you one of those people who feels like it's impossible to get what you want? Well, I'm having a fascinating conversation in this episode with Julie Solomon, who wrote a book that is called Get What You Want, Go From Unseen to Unstoppable. And her origin story is so fascinating, coming from humble beginnings and what she's been doing for the past 15 years, just empowering lives, right? Including her own. She's got an amazing podcast called the Influencer Podcast, which I was, lucky enough to be a guest on. She's got all of these successful online programs. She was recently named Top 100 Leaders in Influencer Marketing. And she came from a background that was a difficult background. Alcoholism, abuse, and how she found her path is so inspiring. So either way, if you're someone who feels like you never get what you want, please listen to this podcast. And if you're someone who would like more of what you want, I hope that you enjoy my interview with Julie Solomon as much as I enjoyed interviewing her. Julie, welcome to the Terri Cole Show. I'm so excited that you are here.
I'm so honored to be here with you. Any millisecond with you is just a gift. So I'm so excited to be here.
Why, thank you. We had a blast on your show, and now I get to return the favor. The Influencer Podcast, if you don't know, Julie's show is amazing, so you want to go there. But what we're going to be talking about today is how to get what you want. And I cannot tell you, Julie has a book that came out 2 days ago, and it looks just like this. If you're watching this on YouTube, how pretty is that cover? I love it. The book is Get What You Want, How to Go From Unseen to Unstoppable. The thing that spoke to me so much about this book is I just love the notion of honestly, straight up saying, this is what I want. Like, get what you want. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's funny, I have a t-shirt that I think I got from, who did I get it from? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I got a t-shirt from one of my girlfriends, and it just says, oh, it's Kate Northrup gave it to me. I do what I want. Because I do. So here's this is right along the lines of get what you want and do what I want. So I want to talk all about, but let's just start with, because at the top of the show, I was talking all about your career and what you've done, what's going on. But I want to talk about your origin story around this. What is your personal story that inspired you to write this book?
Yeah. And, I use the idea of an origin story in the book to talk about what we all have this story that shapes our lives, these belief systems, what may happen to us, what we're exposed to, what we see on a day-to-day basis, what we are told to believe, that really shape how we think and feel in the world. And my origin story was one of small town family, didn't come from a lot. My dad came from extreme poverty. My grandparents lived in a double wide trailer. They both had very little education, very little to get by. My mom was more middle class. Her dad, my grandfather, was the town realtor. But when they got married at a very young age, my mom ran away from home when she was 16 years old to marry my father. And because she had gone outside the confines of what her religion told her to do and had relations with my dad and thought that if she did not marry him, she was going to go to hell. So she ran away and got married, and then they had my brother, and then they had me. And my dad grew up in a very dysfunctional home. He was one of 8 brothers with a very extreme alcoholic father that loved to beat his mother. And so my grandfather. And so he would see that. And, I think that dysfunction carried on in the way that it can into my home. And so growing up, I would be soothed by screaming matches happening downstairs. Alcohol was very prevalent in my life. I don't remember a time in my entire life of not having alcohol around me. Family, friends, social aspects, it's always been there. I never knew that I don't know if that's normal or not normal. That's just what I know. And I didn't, of course, at the time know how that was shaping my lens of how I saw the world and how I related with people and what I started picking up. And so at a very young age, I learned that if I am the good girl and if I kind of think and feel in a way that I'm supposed to, if I do as I am supposed to, then I get rewarded for that. And I really lended to that. And so my origin story is one of scarcity. It is one of a desperate need for approval, a desperate need to be seen and heard, and is also one of performance. If I do certain things and act a certain way and say certain things and take care of other people, they love me more. And so that is my origin story.
Amazing. So how did that impact? Because listen, an origin story like that, we all have our origin stories. That could go lots of different ways, right? We can repeat, you talked about your father and saying this is what he saw. And so there was a repeating, some version of repeating in your home that you grew up in. So when did you shift? What happened for you that moved you from scarcity to believing that you could create this incredible, the Influencer podcast, that you could create these things in your life and that you could write a book called Get What You Want, like How to Become Unstoppable? What happened?
Well, as you can imagine, I grew up from this origin story. I went into a cycle of people pleasing, a cycle of codependency, a cycle of really thinking that I had really good ideas, Terri, about how everyone and everything else should think, feel, and be. And if they would just listen to me, the world would be a better place. How does a self-righteous woman die? She climbs to the top of her ego and she falls off. And so it was a lot of that. And from that was a lot of really dysfunctional relationships. And so I was always very attracted to people who were dysfunctional. The starving artists that were couch surfing, if you look like you probably lived in a dumpster, I was like, sign me up for that. I want all of that and more. And not just look that way, but, just had no qualms for anything. And so that lended itself into a multitude of just very hyper dysfunctional relationships. I never knew where I led off and other people began.
All right. So I want to point out a couple of things quickly, and then you're going to continue your story because it's fascinating. So you found the high functioning codependent in you found the under functioners, right? So, and sometimes in my own experience of being a high functioning codependent, I could take someone who was pretty capable and actually make them an under functioner. You know what I mean? Because what they were doing, I would be like, I got it. Don't worry about it. Or I don't want to do it differently. Right. Because I have, like you, had all the ideas of how everything should be. Very interesting. So, okay. So you found the under functioners.
Yep. And also found the addicts. I love an addict. Love me an addict of all kinds. So found a lot of those. And then got married to a college sweetheart and then got a divorce. Then got remarried and to my now husband, and led me to this moment of, I had some rock bottoms along the way, but one in particular that I talk about is that I get a call from my husband and he says in a very chipper voice, "Hey, hun, when were you going to tell me about the credit card?" And in that moment, my biggest fear of all in my life, which is being found out, was happening. I was being found out of hiding over $30,000 of credit card debt from my husband. And he had found out from a creditor because we were in the process of refinancing our mortgage. And in my delusion, I had made up and told myself, I'm going to figure this out. He won't find out. It's fine. I'm going to book a big client. My husband's an actor, so he's going to book a big show. I'm going to win the lottery and it's going to be fine. And so in this moment, my denial and my delusion was facing me, and there was nowhere to turn, and there wasn't a way for me to fix it. And I'm really good at fixing things, and I could not fix this. And so I had this moment, and he was talking, and I didn't even hear what he was saying at that moment. I just had this inner voice saying to me, asking me, why is it so hard for you to be honest? Why are you so afraid to be who you are and be confident with who you are and say what you mean and mean what you say and own that? And that question catapulted me into this desire to find the answer to that and to get to the other side of whatever this dysfunction and this chaos that I had been causing in my own life. Really allowing it to begin with me. And that's what set me off to where I am today.
Amazing. Who were the helpers? Was it therapy? Was it coaches? Was it friends? Was it groups? Like, who were the helpers?
It was all of it. Therapists, a 12-step program called Al-Anon. My husband just holding space was a helper for sure. Coaches, friends that got it, which was really helpful. Friends that could hold space for that. In some 12-step programs, you may hear them called, there's normies. So I had some normies that got it. And then I had some friends within the program that got it. And then my own higher power, my own inner guidance, my own ability to trust in something greater than myself was a huge help.
So amazing. And it's so hopeful. Jewel, it's like, you hear this story. So anyone listening, watching this, if you identify, it's like, it doesn't matter, where all of us have our origin story. And it's so important that we go, yeah, this is what it is. And those of you who listen to my show, my origin story, but to own your own origin story and to not be ashamed. So much of the time, that's what it is. We feel shame coming from an alcoholic system, not getting it together, whatever the thing is, right? Being $30,000 in debt, there's this shame, but it's so isolating. And what's so beautiful about Al-Anon and what you've shared is that these are all circumstances and situations, relationships, therapy, coaches, where you're sharing the truth about what's happening. And the inquiry, what I think is so interesting about the inquiry is that every one of us could take that exact seemingly simple question. You said, why is it so hard for me to be honest? And think about your own life if you were listening or watching this. What is the thing that is so hard for you to do that you've been avoiding, that you've been in denial of, that you've been like skirting around, or like, it's going to come back to get you, but you're just hoping it's not going to be soon? Because when you face those things, it's like your entire life. Now you're on this path. It sounds like, Joel, like that was like the getting on the path to where you are now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really was. And it brought me to so many things. It brought me to understand how to really keep the focus on myself in a productive way, that isn't selfish, how to advocate for myself, how to create boundaries, which I know you know a lot about, and really figuring out what is that, what are my non-negotiables, what am I okay and not okay with, how do I keep my side of the street clean while owning what is true for me and really rooting in that.
I want to read something from page 107. You say, hold on. An important piece when creating your blueprint for success is that it's your responsibility to be your own number one fan, your own publicist, your own cheerleader. So tell us a little bit about how you became that for yourself, or what people can do to become it.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, and we have a similar story in this way, Terri. I started in publicity at a very young age. I was 21 years old. I moved to New York and worked for a top tier female-led, female-run agency, and was working with some of the top music acts at the time. And I always had this connection or this thing within me that I could see a star, and I would take that star and I would crack it open and I could make it more expansive and bigger and more powerful. And I never really understood why. I never understood why stars were always attracted to me, why I was always attracted to them. I even married a star. I married an actor. I mean, it's part of my coexistence. And so I could always spot it in other people, but spotting it within myself was really hard to do. It was easy for me to wear all black behind the scenes on the red carpet and do this and that for other people. But when it became time for me to really ask myself, what makes me shine? What is my gift? What is my purpose? How do I take that purpose and put it out into the world? How do I create this vision and put it out into the world? And it really came from me understanding, all of the things that I have been doing for all of these other incredible, amazing artists for decades, I need to start implementing into my own life. And so that began the work. It's that idea of if you spot it, you've got it. And to believe that you are powerful enough that what you see in other people is just a direct reflection and what your soul is trying to get you to see in yourself. And I think no longer allowing myself to underestimate the power of my purpose was the key.
It's so amazing, and it's such good advice to sort of turn it in. But it takes being willing to change your mind. Like if your whole trip has been like, I'm unworthy, or no, I'm the behind the scenes, I'm not the important one, right? Someone else is the important one. It really, for you had to pivot towards, I am important. I do have something to share that's valuable, that's unique, that's mine, that will help other people. And I think that we can't do what you're doing right now without this essential piece of being your own publicist and really being your best friend, being your own best friend, being your own best support, because we need all of that support, not just from others, but from us, because it's a hard road having a public life and doing big things. It's going to be hard to do it and scary, right? It makes you very vulnerable. So I love that advice. Another thing I would wanted to ask you about is your 3 tools to freedom, because I feel like we're all seeking freedom in so many ways. So what are your 3 tools to freedom? Share.
Trust is one. Confidence is another. Those 2 I think are vital and essential, and clarity. And clarity, confidence comes from clarity. And that was something that I really started to understand and tap into, that state of being clear, which is really the awareness of knowing yourself and understanding yourself. And then from that clarity comes the confidence. And then the trust of really being able to have a confident relationship with the unknown, not having all the answers, not having to know what's going to happen next in order to step into that vision of what's greater for yourself. To me, that is ultimate freedom, is trusting the process.
So I totally agree. And trusting the process is really hard when you are a recovering control freak.
Yeah.
So what you had said sort of early on in our interview or conversation was about, thinking that you knew what everyone else should be doing in the right ways and whatever. And yet you were doing exactly what you needed to do to create the illusion of control, right? So why do we become the way we do? Why do we become high functioning codependents? Well, part of it, and I know your story and you know my story, is trying to control something in a situation where you could not control anything. So we control ourselves, right? We become the ultimate good girls. We become And yet the process that you went through therapeutically and with other support, Al-Anon is amazing. And I did the same, many years of therapy, in order to see that very adaptive instinct in childhood, like it saved you, like it's adaptive, like it's amazing that you could figure that out at such a young age. Nobody tells us. We just are like, we're such survivors by nature that those things can then and do become maladaptive in adulthood, which is why knowing your origin story and owning it and looking at it and telling it and writing it and following the prompts that you have in the book about it, it's so important, because I think that a lot of times people just go, yeah, you know, I didn't have the best childhood. That's it. You know, where we want to get away from the particulars of what made it not great. And yet it is in those particulars and telling those stories and having someone listen to those stories. Those are the things that make us respond and react in our relationships and in the world as grown-ups. That's what fuels our behavior. So this whole unraveling, you know, it sounds like, you know, you did the onion peeling back layer after layer of a deeper understanding of self, and then going from an acceptance of self. What I love about this book is that it goes to a celebration of self, right? It's not just like, I'm okay, you're okay. It's finding and dialing into your special skills. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, Julie's got this beautiful neon light behind her that spells shine. It's like this. I mean, why is that there? You tell me. I got my own thoughts, but.
I mean, shine to me is something that, you know, and I kind of mentioned it before I was really good at focusing on other people shining and putting the spotlight on them, but I never felt that I was worthy enough to shine. I never felt that my thoughts mattered and my opinions mattered and my heart mattered and what I had to say mattered enough to shine. I was afraid to shine. You know, I was afraid to let people in. I was afraid to let people see the sides of me that weren't perfect. I was afraid to let, you know, to disappoint someone. Oof. Fear of disappointing someone, huge for me. And so now, you know, and I say this in the book, it's one of my favorite call outs. You can't hide yourself and expect to be seen. And so to me, the opposite of hiding yourself is shining, and really the art of shining, and, you know, connecting to one by connecting to many, or connecting to many by connecting to one. That is truly, to me, the art of shining, and understanding that, you know, we don't have to dim our lights to make other people feel good about themselves. We can't control how other people feel about themselves. That was a huge awakening for me, of understanding that, oh, I'm not that powerful. Oh, okay. That's good to know. I'm not that powerful.
You're
but
like,
really
thank God.
Thank God. Right. Thank God that I am not that I do not have all the answers and that I am not that powerful. What a freaking relief. And so now I can just focus on cracking my heart open, letting my vision take the lead, trusting the process, which used to be so, and I used to hate it when people would say that. It sounded very ethereal and kind of woo-woo to me. Oh, trust the process. I don't have time to trust the process because I got to do and I got to act and I've got a to-do list. But what I have learned is that if I can just get the crap out of the way, an entire world unlocks. And that's, to me, that's where the shine comes from.
What's so amazing, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like it's very inspiring. So if you're watching, if you're identifying with what we're talking about in this, go out and get this book, because you can now get it anywhere fine books are sold. Julie Solomon's new book, Get What You Want, How to Go From Unseen to Unstoppable. There it is, if you're watching this on YouTube. But here's the thing. If you're watching this and you identify with what Julie's sharing about sort of hiding, right? It is the perfect career. And it's so funny that we both had those careers of amplifying others, right? What does a talent agent do? What does a publicist do? Basically the same thing. Right. And there's something very safe, right? You said I could wear black. It's all I ever wore when I was an agent, and hide. We are behind the scenes at a Broadway show, at the Oscars, wherever we are, but it's there's something so safe about hiding. And think about, from, again, childhood stuff, we learn that hiding and not making noise, like just going under the radar, is a way to stay safe and to stay good, right? And for me, it was like you, it was very much like, just do well in school, right? Just excel and control the things you can control, and there won't be any problems. And that is something that it makes you very capable, right? Like, so you really learn how to get some stuff done.
Yeah.
But when you come out of hiding, when you realize that it is now maladaptive to hide, and we make up all these big excuses, you know, Jewel, where we're like, I'm just an introvert. And hey, you might be an introvert, but you also might be hiding. You know, I would find people in my therapy practice where I would talk about people being good conversationalists, right? Like, what does that look like? And I teach it in all my courses, like, you know, active listening. Like, what does athletic listening look like? But it also requires sharing. And I would always say, oh, and I'm not talking to you who are the professional interviewers to hide. And you know, those conversationalists where you answer one question, they've got another question. You answer that question, they're like, oh yeah, what happened with your aunt? And what happened with that? And where you're done with the conversation, you're like, wow, Betty never talks about herself. And here was another time that she didn't talk about herself. And I have so many women who feel identified with that. And what you're sharing, what's required, is being seen. Instead of hiding, be seen. Shift your mind about how valuable your experience, what you have to say, your ideas, because it must be you, right? You must be the one who does that. Anyway, moving on. Who do you, we're getting towards the last question, then I want to ask you about boundaries. Who is this book for, Julie? Who is this book for?
You know, I really kind of see two, I see a woman, and she may be in kind of two different stages. One, the woman that feels like getting what she wants is impossible. She can't even fathom the possibility of what that's like. She sees it in other people, so she spots it, but her belief in thinking that what she wants in her life, and whether that's with her business, her relationships, her wellness, her health, her marriage, whatever that may be, she doesn't think it's possible. If you can stay open-minded and curious enough, please pick up the book if that is you. The other woman who might be kind of how I was, right? Overachiever, relentless, hyper productive, which can serve you to a degree.
Sure.
But also you hit this wall and this upper limit, and you feel stuck, and you may not be able to put your finger on it. You may not be able to articulate it or verbalize it, but you know that there's something more. You know that there's a next level. You know that your capacity to really step into who you are and who you're meant to be and how you're meant to show up in this world is there, but you can't seem to quite get to the other side of it. This book is for you.
I love it so much. So you guys, once again, the author is Julie Solomon. Get What You Want. How to go from unseen to unstoppable. Also, check out Julie's podcast. It is really amazing. The Influencer Podcast. So Julie, tell people, where can they find you if they want to hang out with you?
Yes. So they can find me on the Influencer Podcast, wherever they listen to podcasts. They can find me on Instagram. That's where I tend to hang out the most. My Instagram handle is @Jules, Juls, Solomon, SOLOMON. And then my website, juliesolomon.net.
So excited, so grateful that you came and spent so much time with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for writing this book and for sharing with us. We will have to do this again.
Thank you.